Tomorrow, I believe, the end of the race begins, the final sprint. Tomorrow, Donald Trump returns to Butler, Pennsylvania, to the state that could determine the entire election, to the city where Donald Trump was shot back in July. And the media has done everything they can to cover up and forget that Donald Trump was shot. His ear was pierced by a bullet. Now, Joy Reid and many other people on MSNBC have said, oh, how do we know that Donald Trump was actually shot? You could see it very clearly on the video that Donald Trump was shot and mere millimeters saved his life. I think a lot of people don't talk about it, even in conservative circles, because it's so disturbing to understand, it's so disturbing to confront what that means, that we can't protect our former presidents, that we could have gone into an American Civil War, that we were just about to have the opposition leader be murdered on live television. It's almost too dramatic, too heavy. The American people almost kind of just say, I can't handle it. It's just too much for me. Well, Donald Trump is returning and forcing the issue. The beginning of the end of this campaign. We are 32 days out from counting day, not election day. It is counting day in this country. Arizona ballots go out on Wednesday. The voter registration deadline is quickly approaching. Voting is about to begin in Georgia, North Carolina. Voting has already started in Virginia. Voting has already started in Wisconsin. In-person early voting is about to begin in Florida. Election month is starting. And the final sprint begins tomorrow. Now, looking at the data and looking at the state of this race, I want to go back into where the race was back in October of 2020. I want to talk about a state that Trump is almost certainly going to win. A state that is very, very pro-Trump. A state that Donald Trump has changed from a battleground state to a comfortable Republican state. And that is the state of Ohio. Donald Trump will win Ohio. You don't have to worry about it. Do you know that at this date, on October 4th, 2020, Joe Biden was up 2.5 points in the Real Clear Politics average in the state of Ohio? Joe Biden was up at 2.5 points at this moment in time in 2020. Blake?
There was a poll from Quinnipiac that finished on November 1st, the last day of polling, that had Biden up 4 in Ohio.
And Donald Trump won by 8.
8.2.
So that is a 12.2 point polling miss.
You want more?
Yeah,
Iowa.
please.
Iowa, the average was Trump up 2, also won by 8.2.
And so that was a 6 point polling miss.
Florida, average, Biden up 1, Trump won by 3.3.
4.3 polling miss. Now, we can't bank on the same sort of dramatic polling misses this cycle that we saw back in 2020. We'd like to believe that maybe these pollsters have adjusted their models, that they have updated their matrix. However, we don't know that. We do know, though, that it is legitimate to say that back in 2020, this was a much harder environment for Donald Trump to remain as president than right now in 2024 for Donald Trump to become president again. We had COVID death totals on TV. We had BLM marches in the streets. We had race riots. Donald Trump ran out of money, and we've mentioned that before. The Trump campaign was bankrupt at this time 4 years ago. Donald Trump is not bankrupt right now. He's being minorly outspent by about 10 or 15% more in hard money, but Donald Trump has television advertisements on TV. He's finishing strong. He's going to do a rally palooza, and that all begins tomorrow in Butler. And let me tell you right now what I'm seeing happening in real time. And I'm seeing it actually less in the Trump data and more in the Senate data. In just a couple moments here, in a couple segments, we have Eric Hovda in Wisconsin. Front page of Axios.com. Schumer's Wisconsin problem. Wisconsin Democrats are suddenly concerned Senator Tammy Baldwin's reelection bid, rated lean Democrat, is too close for comfort. Baldwin's lead over GOP nominee Eric Hovda has deteriorated, and Republicans are flooding the state with cash, sources tell us. Now, this is fascinating. We have seen Trump be up 5, 6, 7, 8 points on the Senate candidates almost the entire cycle. That is changing in real time. We're seeing the Senate candidates and Trump start to run closer and closer together. That is a warning sign for Kamala Harris and the Democrats that Donald Trump also is about to take off. We have said repeatedly on this program that Donald Trump is the Mariano Rivera of politics. He is the closer. He is the finisher. The last 30 days, Donald Trump locks in, and he is the best finisher that we have seen. He does more rallies. He stays on message. He visits the key states. He draws attention, and he makes Kamala Harris seem small and insignificant. That begins tomorrow in Butler, Pennsylvania. And I can tell you, I have now dialogued with 2 pollsters in the last 24 hours. And both of them told me, Charlie, this race is super tight, but we are starting to see the momentum slowly but surely break in Donald Trump's direction. Break on the issues. Break on what matters most. It is a bullish trend beginning to go in Donald Trump's direction. Now, I'm not guaranteeing victory, but I am saying that there is a clear shot from this point forward to counting day, everybody, that we are beginning to see the trajectory favor us. Blake, we have grown used to Senate candidates being almost irrelevant. We're seeing now the Senate candidates break in a competitive favor. What does that mean for the election?
Well, one thing that's good is it kind of throws Democrats into a bit of disarray if, like, for example, if their candidates have to worry, maybe we're going to lose, we're going to get dragged down by Kamala Harris. So you force them to separate themselves more from
Bingo.
Kamala. You create fractious divides within the Democrats. This also affects money. If they have to send money to try to bail out a Senate race they thought was secure, that's money they're not going to be able to spend as much on the House or on Kamala herself or all these other things. So you're spreading it out. That's especially the case if it's a newly competitive Senate race in a state that wasn't necessarily competitive for the presidential race. So, for example, we'll have a Hung Kao on later, and if
it's a long shot, but
it's a long shot. It's a long shot, but it's more likely than, frankly, Trump winning Virginia, I think. And it'd be great if we won Virginia, but we're not focused on doing that because we only win that if we're winning everywhere.
Correct.
But, the Senate race does matter. And if you force Democrats to go bail out Tim Kaine, that's resources that they aren't diverting to Pennsylvania, to Georgia, to North Carolina.
And I could tell you, I was scrolling through social media last night on Erica's phone. I don't have X. And I saw 6 Tim Kaine ads on X. 6, where they were embedded in the feed. And that's because we did a Hung Kao tweet, and so it was attached to it. Somebody is pumping money right now into the Tim Kaine race. And Tim Kaine was rated as very safe. Baldwin was rated as very safe. And I love what you said. That's such an important point. If you can start to get Tammy Baldwin to distance herself from Kamala Harris, Sherrod Brown to distance himself from Kamala Harris, that only plays into the factor that she's radical.
We've already had this. John Tester has to be like, I didn't vote for Kamala.
And John Tester, by the way, is refusing to say whether or not he's voting for Kamala Harris.
Really? Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
He's still saying that. He's like, I'm not sure who I'm voting for. I'm keeping an open mind. I might vote for a third party. And he's running for the U.S. Senate as a Democrat, Montana. Let me read this, and then I'm going to go to relief factor. Multiple U.S. Senate races are tightening, moving from lean Democrat to statistical ties or even with Republicans ahead. Republican Eric Hovda is now statistically tied with Tammy Baldwin, with per internal polling from both campaigns after being down 7% in Wisconsin. Republican Bernie Moreno has recently been polling slightly ahead of Democrat Sherrod Brown in Ohio. Hung Kao is within the margin of error against Democrat Tim Kaine. Tim Sheehy is now consistently ahead of John Tester. Multiple Senate candidates have momentum, which is a bad sign for Kamala. Everybody, we are 32 days out. It's going to be a momentum race. We are beginning to see the momentum break in our favor. That is why every one of us must chase ballots, get your friends out to the polls, to vote early, sprint to the end. More critical than ever.